Welcome to Ego Netcast. I am Martin Lindeskog, and today I'm talking to Gary Shouldis, and it's a follow-up conversation. Hi, Gary.
Hey, Martin. How you doing, buddy?
Great. Yourself?
Good. Not too bad. It's been a long time since we've spoken.
Yeah, about 2 years. So this time, often I'm doing this Twitter introduction, but now when we are doing a follow-up, people could go to, is it Free Bug Media on Twitter?
Yes, exactly. 3Bug Media, the number 3.
Yeah, and we talked about that last time, what it's the name, but maybe you could do a repetition there and tell the listeners about your fancy name, Free Bug Media.
Yeah, well, we get that question a lot. 3Bug Media is a web marketing company, and we started about 10 years ago. And at the time, we had 3 young children, and we used to call them our little bugs. So when we named our company, we named it 3Bug Media. Since then, we've had a 4th child, and didn't make sense to change the name to 4Bug Media. So my wife and I actually started an e-commerce store about 2 years ago, and that's named Callie's Kitchen, which is our 4th child. So she has her own business name.
Yeah. That's fascinating. So, and we will talk more about e-commerce and things online here. And what's happened since we talked last time?
Well, you know what? I can't remember our initial conversation, but definitely a lot has happened over the last 2 years. We're living in, I think we had just moved to North Carolina when we did our initial interview a couple of years ago. And we're living down in Charlotte. We're loving it down here. And as far as 3Bug Media goes, we're doing primarily client work right now. But I would probably say over the last 2 years, we've been shifting that to our own kind of in-house projects. So we have our own e-commerce store. We're starting to sell products now, our own products, and we're starting to do training. And really just getting back to what kind of actually how we originally met. I believe we met through Biz Sugar or Small Biz Trends, but really how I started online was blogging, and it's what I love. And over the years, I've done a lot of client work, and blogging's kind of taken a backseat here and there over the years, kind of, what happens with most people. But I'm really starting to, probably the last year and a half, I've really been starting to get back into blogging, getting ready to restart the podcast, things like that, and starting to think about getting away from client work and getting more into our own products and things like that, and building a community, building a brand around that.
It's an interesting way to say, because that could be this hustle and challenge. And I've done content creation for a long time also, and like that. And I have a T-shirt that I include in the show notes. One of the creators of Cox and Forkum, that will help me with the illustration of a T-book that you have been so kind and backed, one of the backers. So thanks for that, Gary. And there is a T-shirt called The Blogger's Dilemma. And first you find some news, some things going on, and you write a blog post, and you have done fact-checking and links, outgoing links and research, and you wait for the comments, and you put up the tip jar and waiting for something to come, and not even tomatoes is coming. And then you find something new and start the cycle again. So that could be the blogger's dilemma. But you're struggling, you're hustling, and you're creating content. And I will say so, after now 14 years of blogging, I will start to learn to how to blog in order to make it matter. So I will start a blog through a service called Fizzle. Have you heard about them?
No, I haven't. I'm still on WordPress. I've been on WordPress since day one.
And me too. I'm WordPress on Squarespace. But this is a community. It's a forum, and they have also video courses and hangouts and coaching sessions. So they call this Fizzle. And talking about names, 3Bug Media, you could, fizzle when you put something in a fry pan, that it fizzle. Or from my background, welding industry, that you get a spark. Their blog is called the Sparkline. So, but it could also fizzle out. And I mean, that could be the challenge for a solo entrepreneur to keep going. And as you've said. I think we talked about pivoting and so on, or developing thing and going back to roots. So I've come to that conclusion also. I haven't had so much client work, but I have client work as through what we have met. I'm a moderator of Biz Sugar, and I'm doing posts and so on for Small Business Trends and Projects Fair. Recently now I got this invitation and request to cover the biggest book fair here in Scandinavia, and next biggest one in Europe, the book fair in Gothenburg, coming this month, September 22nd to 25th. And then Anita Campbell wrote a letter for a request that I will covering small business authors and what's going on, and doing interviews and so on. So that's a great thing to do also. And then, but as I said, I call myself a social media evangelist, and then you could end up in this blogger's dilemma that you are giving out lots of free advice, and I will continue to do that. And then you introduce people to this, and then the next thing is to get clients and then to keep them, and that they should see it for the long run. So I understand what you mean there, because it could be like otherwise. How do you say, a similar grunge work that you're doing if you're an employee, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep, exactly. And I think when you talk about the blogger's dilemma, and I think everybody's gone through that, whether you're blogging or podcasting, you get excited about it, you start creating a lot of content, but then you kind of hit a point eventually where you're not sure where it's going. You're not sure where to take it to the next step, or you're not sure how to monetize it. And that tends to be kind of a stopping point for a lot of people. And it's funny because I've been doing client work, working with businesses with online marketing for almost 10 years now. And there's so many similarities with, what you say, that blogger's dilemma, and kind of a business dilemma, especially when it comes to online marketing, because it's kind of the same thing. Because most, what I've learned with working with hundreds of businesses with online marketing is that they tend to focus on the tactics. They tend to focus on, the content creation, the Facebook ads, social media, Google AdWords, things like that. But where they tend to fail, and where most businesses fail with when it comes to online marketing, is they work on all these tactics, but they have nowhere to send people. They have no plan or marketing strategy in place. So if somebody sees a Facebook post or something like that, and they click and they come back to, the website, whether that's an article or something like that, there's no plan in place for that visitor beyond to read that article. Maybe a vague call to action to sign up for an email list. But even if they do sign up for the email list, most bloggers and businesses don't have a plan of action of what to do with that, how to monetize that, or how to take that, casual reader to the next level and turn them into an evangelist. And I think that's where most businesses and bloggers and myself, I've been in this, doing it for 10 years too. And I've been through all these things. And I think that's the dilemma. It's, well, what do I do? Like, if I do get the traffic and people do come back to my blog, well, what am I going to do for them? Do I have something to sell? Do I have a next step for them? Do I have a plan in place to do something with these people once they come? And I think most bloggers and most businesses too, they go in trying to get the traffic, trying to get those visitors, but they don't have a real plan in place to do something with them after.
And there you have, as I said, that we met on Biz Sugar and Small Business Trends, but we continue the conversation, we develop relationships and so on. So you get this referral marketing, and you are genuinely interested in individuals and creators and entrepreneurs and so on. And that will eventually lead to exchange of some kind. So, but you have to stick with it. So, we talked about before here on Skype, and now we are using this service Ringer about the development there, also in the podcasting industry. Do you want to tell the listeners a bit about that? Because I started to listen to your podcast and enjoyed it very much, and wrote a comment there on small business trends and included it in the 100 list. Nowadays it's pretty hard keep up with all the new podcasts and things going around, and how many sticks. And that's what I'm saying, that I started podcast in 2006. I have learned a lot of things, lots of mistakes, and now I'm, as I did in a solo show, just doing it. I will keep doing this, and I will, because I've interviewed about 35 individuals, so I will start going back with people I have interviewed for like what it would be 10 years ago and so on, and go back forward, and also find new ones that will come. And so I mean, as I said before, in it for the long haul and long run, and it's inspiring to hear your stories. It will be interesting to see if you have some tips and tricks and so on about this plan, because I'm using that, and I'm also always giving cred where you find the material. I read a book a long time ago called Groundswell. It was with two forester researchers, and Charlene Lee, I think one of them are, and she has now done her own thing, I think together with Brian Solis, but I'm not sure, and then wrote a new book about new leadership when it comes to digital media and so on. And there you have this wave that's coming that nobody could stop. But you have also a plan that you called acronym POST, like a blog post. So where are your customers, ambassadors, etc. online? What's your objectives? What's the strategy, as you said? And then what's the technical thing? And as you said, many people are jumping to the tech thing. I want a Facebook page. And then you start asking why, and it's hard. And all the tactics, so on. And then you have this integrating thing and continue with it, because I said, when you start with social media, it's hard to stop in a way, but you have to have a plan and resources, time, energy, and some kind of monetary things in investing in this also. So
yeah, and social media is one of those things where you can make it a full-time job, and if you wanted to, there's so much, you can do so much with it. The problem with if you're a business owner is to make sure that you're balancing and you're getting the most value out of it. But to go back to your point about our podcast, the Small Biz Express. We started that, I believe, the fall of 2012, and we recorded our last episode, I believe, fall of 2014. I think we did just over 40 episodes in total, and a lot of lessons that we learned there, kind of just what I talked about, is number one, we love the podcast, and it was amazing how fast you're able to grow an audience compared to traditional blogging. If you're creating a blog from day one, as opposed to a podcast, the podcast grew 20 times faster than when I started blogging. But I would probably say lessons learned was exactly we talk about the blogger's dilemma, or the podcast dilemma, is we kind of reached a stage where we were doing it for almost 2 years, and my partner and my podcast partner, Mike, who still very good friends with to this day, we kind of reached a point where, okay, well, where are we taking this podcast? Where's it going? Are we, are we going to try to get a sponsor, or are we going to try to create a product? Or are we going to try to do something with it? Or are we just going to keep podcasting and hope something happens? So number one is we decided to take a break in the summer of 2014 to kind of strategize over those things, to figure out what course we were going to take it with. So that was, the podcast dilemma, how to monetize it. The second thing I learned from that is momentum and habit. Is we decided to take a 6-week hiatus to do these things, and that was probably the nail in the coffin for the podcast, because once we got out of the groove and once we got out of the routine, it was very difficult for us to pick it up again. And we recorded a couple episodes later on in the fall, but we were never able to really capture that again. And then, of course, like most things, life got in the way, and we decided to take a break for the holidays, and that was the end. That was the end of the story on there. But mostly it was trying to figure out what to do with the podcast, what direction, because like you said with the blogger's dilemma, is trying to figure. We didn't have a plan. We didn't have an outcome in mind when we started it, and we struggled with that, and we stopped, and we're never able to pick it up again.
And it's interesting to say, because I know that I was a bit in a friendly way, because when I found you and you started it and followed you along and comment on it and so on, also nagged you a bit, Van, and said, when are you coming back and so on. And I mean, because I have been through this too, and we had a show called Trend Pal, and it's still up, and we have a domain and so on. But there, my co-host, she found almost full-time job, and then it was hard to continue. But we haven't put down the sign. You never know, we will start, and it's a nice archive, and it's valid there to have. And that's my thing that I'm saying. As you said, you have an expression here in Swedish called like the shoemaker and the children to the shoemaker, or the baker's children, that don't do as I doing, do as I say. And I've struggled with that myself, and have had longer and shorter breaks, but I'm not stopping. And then people, of course, have to evaluate, and if they don't, have an issue with that, it's not always on time, so to speak, as a regular media outlet, that's fine too. But this time I will stick for it, and then I have some kind of plan, and I will develop it. But I've also come into that inclusion. If it's only like monetizing directly, or sponsors and so on, then you either have to be in an extreme, format, or be famous from TV or radio or whatever. That's especially the case here in Sweden. Lots of people coming from regular radio and TV, or the authors have starting podcasting, and then they get the fan base already from the get-go. Others, but still, if you have a niche thing or have a real passion for it and stick to it, as I recently it's hard for you to listen to it because it's in Swedish, but it's called a show called Produktivitet. If you take the word productivity and T together, and then make up a new word, and it's with Johan Gustafsson and myself. And he's very organized, and we do it every second week, and we do it for about so-called commute time, like half an hour, and we use a tool called Trello, putting up the show notes and other things like that, and he's doing the editing, and I doing some kind of the marketing and so on. So there you have different roles. But toggling along here, and we talked about before the show here about Libsyn, our host of the audio file. If you learn and follow and listen to their podcast called The Feed, you learn lots of things, and you learn about statistics, for example, and that you should have some, realistic goals. And by the way, now I'm on a site called Advertisecast. So people could now, and haven't done much promotion of that, but I will start doing that because it's a pretty new service called Advertisecast. And if you go in there and search for Ego Netcast, you could advertise on Ego Netcast in the middle section for only a sawbuck. Do you know what that is? You probably know that. I didn't know it when I searched for it. It's slang for the $10. So that's a show, and if you compare it how long it will stay on the air in archive, it's peanuts and nuts. But when I did, I was very open. Okay, how much downloads do I have? And then I put it in a formula, and then it popped up around that number, and I said, okay, I will test it out. So and as you have donated, like for my Patreon, like a patronage on my crowdfunding, that could be small and big. And I have a site called Patreon. Maybe we talked about that last time. Patreon, Patreon, and there you could so-called donate on a regular basis with small amounts, and show support for bloggers, podcasters, and creators and artists and so on. So I have two.
Yeah, and you're kind of finding now a lot of podcasts are using that to kind of getting listener, kind of the NPR, in the US NPR method of, getting listener support where people donate, or, small funds, a couple dollars a month or something like that, just to keep the podcast running.
Yeah, because when you start calculating with the cost and so on, with the hosting, with the websites, I have my own app, so I'm so-called app developer also. and other things. And then you have also other distribution channels that I have a premium SoundCloud account and so on. So it's adding up. But again, I mean, one thing is leading to another. So I mean, in February this year, I was talking at a conference that was focused on podcasting. So then I could market myself and my podcast and give some trends for podcasting and so-called looking in the crystal ball. And that was very appreciated, and people liked it and so on. And it was interesting to talk to other podcasters and so on. And also see that it was so big interest, so you could create a fair or event for this kind of specialized content creation outlet.
Yeah, exactly. And I've noticed, even a couple of years since we started our podcast, I've noticed that the community and the amount of people getting into podcasting is just exploding. We thought it was a crowded network when we started back in 2012, and it's just amazing how many podcasts. It's like blogging now. Like the community is so big.
Yeah, and I could give you that as a recommendation. I haven't been it on international yet, and I look forward to do that someday, to visit America again and then attend a podcast event and fair and conference like Podcast Movement or a Podfest or something else. So that could be a thing also when you're starting again, to check out if you have anything in your area or something, a place that you could go to. Do you want to tell anything more about it, or is it under wraps, or about your podcast?
I think with the podcast, I mean, we're staying in line with podcast tips. I would probably say I started with a partner. I had the idea for doing a podcast for a number of years, and it's one of those things where if you're doing it yourself, it's hard to, I guess, build up the nerve and, kind of get all your ducks in a row to actually launch the podcast. I found it much, much easier to do it with a partner. It's kind of like having an accountability partner to do it with you. But with the same sense, then you're working with two people. So, you get schedule conflicts and things like that. So, you run into your road bumps like that. But I think if you're starting a podcast, it's great if you can find somebody that you can mesh with and kind of have the same ideas of where you want to go with your podcast. It's definitely a great idea to do it with somebody. It makes it much easier, especially if you don't have experience, podcasting or with radio. It can be a bit strange to speak for 40 minutes by yourself.
Yeah.
And it takes a little bit of pressure off, having somebody else on the show with you.
Yeah. So yeah, that's great tips. Looking forward to listen to your podcast again when it's starting new. And that's a great thing. You could always go back and listen to old episodes and see where it's left off and see what's going on now. And that's what will be one of thing with my podcast, that I will do this kind of follow-up and see what's happening and news and so on with fellow podcasters, bloggers and entrepreneurs and so on. So around this time we talk about trader principle, and also before that I have not a sponsor but a affiliate called Audible. Do you listen to audiobooks, Gary?
Yes, I've actually blogged about Audible in the past and audio. I've been using Audible before Amazon owned them. I think I've been an Audible listener probably since about 2008, 2009.
Wow. On
there. And I would probably credit, because back then in the late 2000s, I was spending most of my days in the cars, commuting, driving to different clients and things like that. And that's pretty much all I would do all day, is listen to audiobooks. And, I went from reading, 2 books a year to reading 2 books, listening to 2 books a month. And I can credit a lot of the things and ideas and kind of where I'm at with that kind of learning curve is being able to do it with audio. Cause I definitely learned that I'm more of an auditory learner than a visual learner. So it worked perfect for me. And I still to this day have my, Audible membership.
Great to hear. And I can give you story there also, because I have, as I said, an Audible affiliate there, and then when you did this process, you had to show, some kind of ratings and reviews on iTunes and so on, to do that. And I'm, as I said, still a small fish, and lots of big players out there have Audible there, and many in America already have, as you, an account. But here in Sweden and other places, it's pretty new. And I know a friend that I tipped it before I started the affiliate code there, and he started it, and he enjoys it very much. But if you want, then support this show and get the free book for 30 days, I think it is, and then you start a subscription. You could go to audibletrial.com/egonetcast. So that's audibletrial.com/egonetcast. Do you have a book tip? And then I will tell about the story, what happened with an audio company here in Sweden and what they did.
You know what? I think when it comes to favorite books, I think those tend to come at different points in your life, depending on what's important at that time to you.
Mm.
And I probably have about 80 books in my audio library, but two of the ones that come to mind that I'm interested in right now that I'm kind of revisiting is the first one is On Writing by Stephen King. I don't know if you ever read that one. It's a short book, and the first half of it is basically almost a biography of Stephen King, and the second one, he talks about how he writes. And if you're not a fiction writer, if you're a blogger or something like that, lots of great tips, lots of great insights, especially when it comes to keeping audiences engaged and thinking about character and thinking about your plot and thinking about your story and how to craft a story. So a lot of good information in that book. And the other one I enjoy, it's an old book, but it's called The Magic of Thinking Big by David Schwartz. It's along the lines of Think and Grow Rich, but has a lot of good kind of self-help, self-motivation advice in there. So if you like Jim Rohn, you're kind of like that self-development kind of things, it's a great book to read or listen to.
Great tips. And this on writing, that's coming handy now when I'm writing my first forthcoming book on tea, as you had backed. So that's a great tip, and I've heard about it before, and this other I will definitely look into. So thanks for the tip, and I will include that in the show notes. So the story is that a similar service, you could say, but here in Sweden and in Swedish, not so big as Audible, but it's called Storytel. And they recently purchased or acquired a big book publishing company called Nordstedts. So an audiobook service that haven't been around for I don't know how many years, but not I don't know. I will check it out. But Nordstedt is, are they 100 years, 200? I don't know, but they have been around for a long time. So this audio company, startup that have been around for a time, but pretty young, acquired this established company, and that's pretty interesting. And they will be on this big book fair that I will attend here in September. So that's interesting, and they do, of course, then promos in order to get hooked and listeners and so on. And I think they have a different model than Audible. Audible, I like that you have like 1 credit or how many credits you have, and that equals a book if it's a regular book. And then you could listen and you have it in archive. I think storytelling is that you could listen as much as you want, I think, for a certain time. So that's their model. The thing is that I think if it's only in Swedish or mostly in Swedish, so for me, Audible is, I enjoy to listen.
The thing I like about Audible is that, you have that 1 credit, 1 credit is a book, and even if you don't have your subscription anymore, you still have your library of books because you purchase them and you own them.
Yeah, you keep them. And as for me, I mean, I like that you have, and that's an inspiration to see that I consume regular books also, and like to feel it, touch it, and sometimes even smell it if it's an old book, and then making notes and so on. But listening to like on a commute or a bus ride or tram and so on, or when you're out walking. For my latest credits, I got this Gary Shouldis, Ask Gary V, and that was interesting. I mean, how he did. He had authors like Seth Godin and on asking questions that I would asked, but put them in audio format. So that was interesting. And if you don't get the credits every month, I mean, they stack up until I think 6 credits. So then, as me doing this writing on T-books and others and personal development, then it's interesting. Then you could get a bunch of books at the same time. So, and also it's included now Wall Street Journal and what's more, is it the New York Times, like their subscription service? Like
yes, you get a subscription with it.
Yeah, so it's like an interesting guy who reads it pretty. I mean, almost not like a robot, but in like a British style thing, and it's interesting to listen in use in that way. And then also now recently, and that have been a bit of debate and discussion in the podcasting sphere about something, and now I forgot the name again. But it's almost like stories, but it's similar to podcasts. So like shorter excerpts and snippets and like they take a topic or a blog post or an essay, and then they do an audio format of it. So that's the new thing here in Audible. But they don't really call it the podcast, and that's the thing with the debate also, that maybe the layman or regular person still don't know what's a podcast. So they try to introduce them to this kind of service them, that you could listen to short pieces and episode like, and that we also talked about the podcasting, what have happened, that the series format and so on, and like you said, this stories with horror stories and others, and also the history thing and so on. Do you already know how you will do it when you restart your podcast? Will it be on a every month, every 2 weeks?
Well, you know
the
what?
format, the size, and so on.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because when we were doing our podcast back in 2012, I think for the most part, pretty much everybody did the same format, whether that was once a week or once a month or kind of radio show format, topic driven, things like that. But getting back into it now, I've seen that there's so many different formats going on right now. And like an example of a series would be like Seth Godin, I believe I think it might be called the Startup School or something like that. But he has a 10 or 12 episode series. It's just a start and finish series about one topic about starting a business. And we talked about hardcore history, which, maybe only publishes, a couple times a year. And, they have 3-hour podcasts, which kind of breaks the idea of what, a podcast should be like. And I think as far as the Small Biz Express podcast, it'll probably be, a weekly or a bi-weekly, but I'm also really thinking about creating little series, about specific topics. So maybe, a 5-part training series on, building a sales funnel, or a 5-part series on local SEO or something like that, where you can go in depth and kind of somebody could just download that entire series and get that, 3 hours or 4 hours worth of audio content for that specific subject.
Well, that's interesting to know, and I look forward to it. And I mean, with Libsyn, you could have this, if you have an app, this standalone app that you maybe could look into, that I have it in like an extra service, and people who are don't know how to use a podcatcher and so on, they could go and download an app, and then you could add like extra material, like a video or like a PDF or something like that, for people who have downloaded it, and then you could track that in a way. And then of course you could use this premium content and others, and they have that service also. But that also have been a discussion and debate. I mean, do you do a wall garden or lock material or something like that, or do you do it for free and then find other formats to earn on it?
Yeah. Well, I mean, what I've learned from podcasting and blogging, is number one, your podcast audience is not your blogging audience. The overlap between the two worlds is very, very thin. There's not many people who follow my blog that also subscribe to the podcast. You would think it would be most of the people, but it's not.
That's interesting.
When it comes on there. And the other thing I learned that is when it comes to podcasts, you have to remember the context of how people listen. They're in the car, they're at the gym, they're running, or they're walking. They're usually doing something else, while they're listening. And the transfer of a podcast listener to your website is almost non-existent unless exactly what you just said, unless you give them a reason. So we would sign off, and that's where you get into your show notes and things like that, or PDF downloads. That's how you drive podcast listeners back to your website. You need to give people a reason to get that extra content or to get those resources to come back to your website. And that's a good, very good tip for podcasters to get, carry over those listeners back to your website.
Yeah. I remember when I listened to the latest episode of A Feed by Elsie Escobar and Rob Walsh, official podcast for Libsyn. Elsie mentioned there that people have used LinkedIn with like transcripts or show notes and putting there like a blog post there. And maybe even the player could work there. I don't know, but it's interesting how you could do it in different on different platforms and so on. So, but as Rob is saying also that make it easy for the listener and give them options, and then you could figure out other ways for the so-called hook. That's an interesting area here and to explore, and things happening all the time.
Yeah, exactly. And you're absolutely right. It's to figure out, explore, and see what's best, for your situation.
Yeah, and as I said, it's around half time. We could talk about as long as we have freedom of expression, and that will be free speech and freedom of expression will be the topic and the theme on this book fair in Gothenburg. So that will be interesting to follow along also. And as I saw here last time we talked about around the trader principle, we talked about this affiliate program like Audible and so on, Amazon. There were techs to death in California and moved out of that. So it was this Amazon tax. Have you thought about more about what's going on? Now it's soon also getting in this political debates and so on, and it's interesting to follow it from distance, so to speak, with the candidates and so on. And I must say, that's my personal opinion, that it would be interesting if this guy Gary Johnson will be allowed to the debates. Because I think many Americans will see that these two other candidates, if they put that in perspective with this guy, maybe that could be something to think about. What do you say about that?
Well, in order for a candidate to get into the debate schedule, I believe they need about 15% of the
correct.
Of the vote, of the polling vote to get in there. And I think Gary Johnson's getting close. Getting close to there. It's definitely an uphill battle. Really, when you get into the politics, you're getting into money and influence. And, it's, I'm in the States, so we see it, but there's been pretty much a complete media shutout of, if you're not one of the two main candidates, you're pretty much shut out of any kind of media coverage or debate. And there's even, been, and like you're talking about going to your book, the book fair thing about freedom of speech. And what you're finding now is, it's starting to come to light how media, the mainstream media in general, how they censor. They censor, what you hear and what you listen to, and they're censoring speech. And it's going on everywhere. Facebook censors, Google is censoring, media is censoring, NPO, PBS in the States here just gotten a lot of trouble with censoring Jill Stein, who's a Green Party candidate. In the US, they edited her responses in her interview, and then they edited one that removed a lot of her, what she had to say on there without telling the listeners that this was an edited version of it. So it's very interesting the way, when it comes to free speech, and you kind of see it's starting to come to light now that you can see how much censorship there is going on out there without you knowing on it, and how the mainstream media kind of shapes what the public thought is, you know what I mean, every day. Like they're deciding what people are talking about.
And that could be, I mean, with one of the candidates, especially, I mean, Trump, he's very good at that, to do this strange kind of negative buzz. I mean, he went to Mexico and talked, and then when he back home and say that he's starting to build the wall. And for me, as a person, that's, if you own your life, you have right to move wherever you want, as long as you're not enemy of the state, so to speak, or have a deadly disease or some intention of some terror attack or others. You should be welcome to go wherever you want to go. And it's strange that it's almost like a big wall of China, but America then. And I don't get it, but he still get away with it because it's he's shouting for the masses there, and he's doing a stunt, and like on Twitter he's very, I mean, active there, and he get his saying out in a way. But that, I mean, other candidates could use, I mean, new media and social media in their favor. They don't have to have a big budget or lots of staff and so on. They could do it in a different way. So. What do you say about your own services and so on when you have an exchange of service and products? You said when we talked on Skype that you're creating content like video and courses and so on. Is something that you want to tell a bit more about?
Yeah, I mean, I've been a blogger, first and foremost. I've been a blogger, for 10 years now. And there's, we started a podcast in 2012, and there's just so much media there. Video is so big right now. There's so many opportunities with video between Facebook, YouTube, Snapchat, Periscope. There's so many different, Facebook Live is out now. There's so many things to do with video. And I think, I mean, as far as me personally, it's one of those things where I think it's just naturally awkward to see yourself on film. And it's one of those things where it's like public speaking. It takes a while to work up your nerve. And, this year I made a commitment to start doing more video, actually doing video in general. And it's been a little bit of a slow go, but I'm starting to, I have a YouTube channel now, and it's almost like video now is probably blogging, 6-7 years ago, as far as where it's at. People are just starting to wake up to it and starting to realize that it's a great opportunity as a platform to use it. And in the same respect, I think podcasting's like that too over the last year or so, where people are starting to realize that it's a major, marketing opportunity, and to reach a whole new audience through audio. So I think the biggest thing today is, if you rewind from 3, 4, or 5 years ago, is it's so much easier today to start a podcast, to start a video cast, or start your own YouTube channel. The quality of, all you need is a cell phone and a computer, or not even a computer, a phone. Like, you can do the whole entire thing. You can do the video, you can do the shoot, you can do the, editing, you can do the post-production and the publishing straight from your phone today. So there's almost no barriers right now to create content. And with that, with that being no barriers, you also have a lot more people getting into each of these platforms. So there's a lot more noise now too. It's, they're starting to get a little more crowded, but if you're producing quality stuff and you're consistent and you know who your audience is, then, you shouldn't have a problem, weeding your way through that, maze of kind of messiness in there with everybody getting started.
Great. Yeah, that's a great idea and plan there. And I'm also in some way late to the game, to the YouTube videos. I had some cat videos and some others, and also with my chili pepper interest, and also I did also showing how to use product, this matcha green tea product. how you could serve it with some latte, and also like iced, and also in like a yogurt and so on, a smoothie. So, and also regular as a hot beverage. So that I will do more also. The thing is, when you come to the gadgets and equipment and what you could need, because if you're by yourself, you should be able to do several things at the same time. So, but I'm looking into that, and also for my book writing and for the crowdfunding, I want to, give some insights, some how to say, behind the scenes and what I'm doing, and also when the first book is published. But that could lead to speaking engagements, that could lead to tea tastings, to workshops and others. And you see that popular like food TV channels and others doing that. And for example, here in he's from Sweden, here from around my area, called PewDiePie. You probably have heard about him.
Yeah.
And I mean, for me, it's hard to grasp because I'm not into gaming in that way. Even if I recently got introduced to a thing that I could send you an affiliate link, an interest, that an app that is about, how do you say, fantasy football and sports and so on. Do you do that? Like challenge with your friends and so on, and you could have games. And they are launching it in this fall. And it's a fascinating idea. And it's lots of people from Electronic Arts and so on, with this gaming that I knew back in the day with the home computer and the games that you played. And this guy, PewDiePie, he has, is it like 30 million subscribers on YouTube? And he has negotiated
my son's one of them.
Okay. And he has negotiated like a deal with Disney Channel. But then you have also, as we talked, the trader principle, you get these people, luckily it's only a few, but the haters and people who are envious, and they had this thing, and that we could talk about media, but some media outlets, even the new media, is starting to acting like the tabloids. I mean, recently Gawker shut down because, they had spread a thing with Hulk Hogan, and Peter Thiel, he was bankrolling this defense of Hogan, so they had to shut down. And also when with PewDiePie, then they spread rumors that he had done so-called hidden promotion, promoting something. But back then, when he recorded, you didn't have to say that this is sponsored or paid by, because that's recently rules. But then he had done it anyway, so they didn't fact check the thing. And then one outlet took it, and then a new media outlet, and so on and so on. So he then recorded a video saying he was pretty upset. But the thing is, he has a huge fan base then, so he got his support. And then I spread it on my Facebook, because it's easy to click and see something like that, especially if it's negativity. But I have some internal gadget but I don't want to. I want to focus on the positive things. So it's interesting to see how people like PewDiePie and others have coming to the top like that, rise to the top, and then envious or others are trying to bring them down, like cutting down the poppy, as the expression they say in Australia.
Yeah, and I think you see that a lot when it comes to social media. I mean, social media is a great platform to reach different audiences and stay in touch with friends and family and things like that. But it's a double-edged sword. There's so many trolls on social media that they don't want to see anybody succeed.
Yeah,
and you see that with celebrities. You see that with businesses, they're looking at any opportunity to try to cut you down. And if you have that personality where you kind of you take all those things to heart, it can be very difficult to kind of navigate online and to stay online when you have that constant negativity on there. And I think you just have to develop, as you get more popular, if your podcast or your blog or things like that, you just have to accept that doesn't matter what you do. you're always going to have people that are going to try to knock you down. And you just have to, you just have to ignore them and just realize that, it's nothing that you're doing. It's just these people are going to do that's what they live for. They live for trying to drag people down because, they're not happy with their life. Pretty much. That's pretty much what it comes down to.
And I will tell a personal example, and also in a way including you, if you're up for it there. Because, I had that during my blogging period that I'm still doing since 2002. And then at one time it was a blogger that attacked me in a way and said, who do you think you are, and so on. And with this I had a t-shirt. You could have merchandise for egoist.blogspot.com and so on, that is created by John Cox and Alan Forcum. And then I got pretty upset and sad also, and was thinking of taking a long break, or even and then I got fellow bloggers and readers and so on that cheered me up and so on, and I continued. And open when we did our podcast last time, and 2 years ago, I don't get so many comments on Squarespace, the blog and so on, because people are often listening or reading and then think for themselves, or they go to other channels like Twitter or send an email. But when I got a comment there, and I reached out to you and said, what should we do here? But you said, and I like the transparency and openness, and you said, let that comment be there, because it was somebody anonymous that said something about you and your service and so on. You see that you decide if you want the comment to be there. Often, and like WordPress I think had that problem now and then with the spammers. But then, of course, it could be others that are hiding and have an agenda. But I asked you, and then kept that comment there, and it's coming full circle, so it's a good thing. So, do you have any thoughts, ideas about that?
It's like customer reviews for businesses today. Yeah. It's a double-edged sword, because you have to take the good with the bad, and there's a lot of times, because I work with lots of different business clients where they get unfair reviews. People are just unreasonable, or they're just flat out, not true. And they're allowed to publish their reviews and make them public on there. And it's really, at the end of the day, there's nothing you can do about it except keep doing what you do, because it's always going to be, people that are going to try to drag you down or try to cut you down, or they're going to be unfair. They're not going to tell the truth. And it's one of those things where you just have to take it. You just have to kind of go with the flow and realize that as you get more popular, and as you get a bigger audience, and as people start to take notice of you or your business, that there's going to be a very, very, very small percentage of people that don't want to see you succeed. And they're going to do what they can to pull you down, or, and there's a lot of people, when it comes to customer reviews, that the slightest inconvenience to them, they come out and they just tear the business apart. If you're 5 minutes late, or you forget to return a call or something like that, and next thing you know, you would think that you stole their firstborn from them, and people are using that as an outlet to express outrage. But really, at the end of the day, it's outrage for what?
Yeah, correct. Yeah, it's a good reflection there. So, and I was thinking, you have talked about your future plans and also things that's going on. Do you have any other suggestions on future guests that you would be interested in listen to, and or topics?
Well, as far as I don't have any individual guests in mind. But as far as topics is, like I said, it comes down to what I'm interested in. Again, I'm interested in podcasting again, because we're getting ready to start that up. And one of the big things for me for marketing is really starting to get away from individual tactics. So getting away from, we do search engine optimization, we do paid advertising, social media, things like that, but really starting to look at the marketing strategies more holistically and how they all work together, because you can be the best blogger, you can be the best podcaster, you can be the best, Facebook advertiser in the world. But if you don't have the rest of those parts in place, if you don't have a plan for when people come to your website and a plan to convert them or to take them to the next step, then it doesn't matter how good you are at social media or things like that. You're still not going to get, the conversions and the customers that you're looking for, because they all work together. So I think really right now, as far as the marketing goes, I'm really starting to focus more holistically of how the whole entire strategy works, and figuring out the strategy and what the marketing funnel looks like for a business, or an individual, before they ever even get to the stage of, should I do Facebook, or should I do blogging, or should I do podcasting? It's almost start with the end in mind, start with the end goal, and then work your way back. And when you get to that point where you understand who your audience is, then look at, okay, well, what's the best place to reach this audience? Is it Twitter? Is it Facebook ads? Is it Google AdWords? Is it blogging? Things like that. And then focus on those things instead of focusing on those things first and then trying to figure out what to do later on, how to turn them into a customer and things like that.
Great. And that's what my own insight and introspection and what I've learned through the times. That's why I'm, as I said, looking up to Chris Brogan and learn lots from him. And I attended a podcast course that he had, or a webinar there, and also bought his course on Write Your Book Already. So, and now recently found Fizzle. So I will send you, put the show notes, but also send you to you by email so you could check them out, because I think they fit your ideas with your hand in the glove, so to speak. So, and I mean, that's also that things takes time. And you learn, know, like, and trust, and you find people. And that's how we found each other. Through Small Business Trends and BizSugar. And you commented on my blog where got-t-party.com about favorite tea. And that's I will have added now recently as a question also, what's your favorite beverage? And then you said that you and your wife, you drank, was it white tea, right? And
we still do the same exact thing for about 7 years now. We drink every night. We have silver needle and white peach tea.
Wow! Yeah,
so we do a blend. We do a blend to get a little hint of peach in there, but that's been our nightly ritual for about 7 years now.
Wow, that's a pretty. Silver Needle, for the listeners, that's pretty exclusive tea. And that's what will be in my book 4. I think it will be, or maybe, let's see here, maybe 5 or 6. It will be white and yellow tea. And I got like silver needle from China, or Asia, from a person that was a very special district and so on. So, is it a special brand that you use, or do you do your own blend, or?
You know what? I'm not sure. To tell you the truth, I'm not sure. We order from an e-commerce store online, and Silver Needle, it definitely is a premium. Definitely is a premium white tea in there. But we mix it. We enjoy a hint of peach in there, so we usually do a 50-50 mix when we're making our tea.
Interesting, yeah. So, and that could be, maybe I will ask you to do a guest post later on when I start out my teaparty.media about this. But I will do this holistical thing and think this through and go this course. Start a blog that matters. So it will fit in place like these puzzle pieces. So. Anything else that you want to say? Of course, you have to plug your site, or do you have any? Last time you had, I think, some special, not ebook, but some material. Do you have anything in the pipeline for the, restart of a podcast or your site or something like that you want to direct the listeners to?
Well, I don't have anything right now, but I'm actually in the process of creating a marketing course. Mm-hmm. And it's going to be talking about kind of what I touched on before about building a holistic marketing funnel. Because I think most businesses get frustrated when they get into online marketing. It's just, there's so many different things to do. And I don't think most businesses know where to start. And if they start to do something, they don't know where to take it. They don't know how to connect all the pieces together. So I'm putting together a course on creating, it's actually going to be called the 30-day marketing machine. So to put it together in 30 days, how to bring some clarity to your marketing strategy, and basically a step-by-step guide of how to put all of these things together, in around a month's time frame. And the course isn't out right now, but if you go to my website, 3bugmedia.com, you can sign up. You can contact me. We do have an online course there, an email course on local SEO. So if you're interested in that, you can sign up for the course. If not, you can just shoot me an email or just, hit me up on Twitter and let me know. And I can put you on our list. And when we come out with the product later, it's either going to be later on in the fall or early January. The course is going to come out, and put you on the email list and give you an update, and maybe you can become a beta user for it and help out.
Will you sell it through your own e-commerce site and so, or will you use other services like Udemy and others, or both?
Well, that's a good question, and it's one of those things that I've looked into. And you're probably aware Udemy changed their pricing plan a couple of months ago, where you used to be able to kind of set whatever price you want, and now it's $50 or under, plus with the pretty steep discount. So Udemy's probably become more of a commodity course seller. So no, so I will be the course will be hosted on our own platform. We'll be using Teachable. On our own website to host the course, and then most likely what we will do is use Udemy and Skillshare and create some smaller courses, more of an introduction to certain topics and things like that, to drive interest and then kind of drive traffic to our main product. So have a couple small standalone courses on those platforms, and then but the big courses will house ourselves.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, that's great to hear. So thanks for that update regarding the e-courses there online. So I could say to listeners there that you could, if you want to do some call to action there, go to egonetcast.com/support, and there you could find several ways of supporting the show. So anything else you want to end with, Gary? And thanks again for this follow-up. It was a pleasure to talk to you again. So any ending thoughts?
No, it was just great. It was great catching up with you again. You've been podcasting before podcasting was probably a term on there. So it's always great to, talk to somebody that's been there since the beginning. And I look forward to getting the podcast back up again and kind of jumping back in with the community. When it comes to client work and things like that, you kind of get away from that blogging community and the podcasting community. But in the end, I think I can probably credit most of the good things that have happened to me over the last 10 years actually came from the connections I've made with people. I've met, I've met people from all over the world. I've met Mike, my podcast partner, through social media, things like that. So it's always good to go out and kind of mingle with the community, because you never know what's going to happen, and you never know when an opportunity is going to arise.
Yeah, great saying there. And thanks again for your time, Gary, and talk to you soon again.
All right, great. Thanks for having me, Martin. Take care. Cheers.
Cheers.